Welcome to episode 9 of The Eagle's Nest, the audio retelling of the great book by Charles Supersinski, and it's titled Soaring with the Eagles, the Copper Peak Story. We're going to be going over the time period of 1931 to 1942, the golden era of ski jumping in the U.S. And there had been phenomenal growth in ski jumping from 1920 to 42, and it's probably safe to say that by the end of the time frame, dozens of communities, at least those in the northern halves of the states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, developed the ski jumping facility. Many were backyard neighborhood hills built by interested youngsters who simply wanted to enjoy the winter outdoor scene. Many hills came and went in the time span of a few years without any historical record of their locations. Certainly, every one of the communities on the Gogebic Range had multiple hills, mostly all natural. The numbers participating in the sport of ski jumping were staggering. At no time before or after the 1930s would there be more hills built or more skier involvement in the United States than during this time period. Even the years of the Great Depression did not dampen the interest in the sport when it continued to thrive. Many of the larger hills, which became part of the Central and National Ski Associations, were built with the help from the WPA of the Roosevelt administration. Still, many were built by people simply dedicated and committed to the sport. A number of colleges and universities began to get into the act and build their own hills. Several state high school athletics associations began to include ski jumping as part of their programs. From its inception in this country, the sport of ski jumping, however, has always been a club sport, and it remains that way today. Just prior to the United States entry into World War II, there were some 25 clubs in Wisconsin, 14 in Minnesota, 3 in Illinois, and 16 in the state of Michigan, which offered competitive ski jumping. Let's go back to 1931 and 32 specifically. Ironwood had a problem. Its big hill at Curry Hill blew down, so they have no large hill in Ironwood, and you can only guess what the extent of impact was to the Norrie Athletic Club when they heard of the destruction of Curry Hill Steel Slide. A great deal of time, effort, and energy and resources had been invested in sponsoring the competitions at Curry Hill in the past 8 years. Additionally, the club had taken on the responsibility of managing the Colonial Skateland on Greenbush Street. This involved providing skating opportunities for youngsters as well as sponsoring a local hockey team. Would the club be able to rebound from this tragedy? Evidence shows that the Norrie Athletic Club would never recover from its loss and only minimally participated in any ski jumping programs in the future. The year 1931 proved to be a low point for ski jumping on the Gogebic Range. There was just small boys competition sponsored by the High Flying Club on Mans Hill and Norrie location, and an informal competition of boys on Quarry Hill in Aurora location. Mans Hill was located on the top of Norrie Hill, and Quarry Hill was located about 1 mile to the east in Aurora location. Informal boys clubs were formed in those and other mining locations, and they would sponsor events for their members. As the Great Depression impacted the area, many skiers moved to more populated centers for work and good opportunities and joined other clubs to maintain their interest in the sport. A number of skiers joined the ranks of the professionals and traveled the country seeking venues which offered significant prize money. Professionalism in ski jumping did not die with the action of the National Ski Association in 1917 to ban the practice. It resurfaced after World War I, continued through the 1930s. A purse of $1,000 equal to $15,000 today was the prize for professionals at Big Pines, California in 1931. The lucrative professional circuit attracted several of Ironwood's top jumpers. In 1933, the interest in ski jumping was returning to the Gogebic Range. The old adage, "You can't keep a good man down," applies to ski jumpers in 1933. This season, the area experienced a resurgence in ski jumping interest and activity. The Aurora Athletic Club picked up where the Nori Athletic Club left off and became active in supporting the sport, not only on the local level, but also by extending support for local jumpers to participate in events throughout the Midwest. It was the start of bigger and better things to come for area ski jumpers and ski riders. The loss of Curry Hill did not appear to dampen the interest in ski jumping, as some 95 skiers from the Gogebic Range registered for a second tournament at Quarry Hill on February 19, 1933. While most of the skiers were from Ironwood, 5 were from Ramsey, and 1 each came from Guile and Montreal, Wisconsin, all area mining locations. The Aurora Athletic Club assisted riders to attend tournaments in Wisconsin Rapids, Brighton, Michigan, and Ishpeming, with excellent results at Brighton. A large delegation of skiers from Ironwood, including several youngsters, made the 600-mile journey to compete at Brighton. Their unique story is told in the Daily Globe. "Ski riders start young here," Detroit fans told. The Zabriskie brothers, the Kuklinski twins, and other Ironwood ski riders now at Brighton are showing winter sports fans of the Detroit area something about ski riding. Ted Zabrisky's 3 younger brothers, Chester 5, Johnny 10, and Stanley 15, as well as the 9-year-old twins Pat and Mike Kuklinski, came back from the Upper Peninsula to ride. The story continues in the Daily Globe. Ted Zabriskie tells how skiing is learned in Ironwood and was published several days earlier in the Detroit News. Since all they have to do to ski is step out the front door, it's no wonder the younger generation of Ironwood learns the sport almost before they can walk. You see, Ironwood is built on a series of locations or mining sites, most of them on hills, explained Ted. And all you have to do to go skiing is step outside your front door. Then where the ground has caved in at abandoned mine workings, there are open pits with sharp drops, and it is there that the boys get their first training in jumping. To cap the 1933 season, the Hurley Northside Athletic Club, made up of older boys, sponsored a ski tournament on the hills north of the Iron County Jail, believed to be Eagle Bluff. Some 25 riders aged 8 to 17 participated. Skiers from both Hurley and Ironwood were represented. It was Hurley's first ski jumping competition. 1934 was the year where there was high hopes and then disappointment at Mount Zion. After an encouraging ski jumping season in 1933 with many new skiers emerging, the Aurora Athletic Club was elated with the possibility of establishing a new jumping hill on the north slope of Mount Zion. A great deal of work was done on the hill with high hopes and expectations. It was the goal to sponsor local meets towards the end of February. A great deal of the club's energy was devoted to the development of Mount Zion, leaving very little time to participate in other tourneys. There were, however, serious problems with the hill. A number of skiers believed the north face of Mount Zion would make an excellent hill, but the reality of the slight was this. The geometry of the Mount Zion slide was not appropriate to a good ski jumping design, being a rock outcrop and difficult to shape. The Aurora Club sponsored their first and last competition on the hill, called the Big Z. While the senior jumpers were attempting to cure the ills of the Mount Zion hill, the junior jumping program continued to flourish in the caves. Interest was running high at the local meet at the Aurora Athletic Club at Quarry Hill on February 4, 1934. Some 94 skiers participated, including 2 of the Zabriskie daughters, Rose and Virginia. That was a big family. And the skiers from Ironwood continued to do well at other meets out of town. Teddy Sebersky set a new world ski jumping record at Brighton. Ted Sebersky of Ironwood set a new world record for a ski jump off an artificial slide when he leaped 201 feet. Sebersky fell on his first takeoff from the 130-foot slide at Brighton. He was uninjured and returned to make 4 leaps, all of them bettering the hill record of 187 set by Walter Beadle, a University of Michigan jumper from Ishpeming. Sebersky jumped 194 feet on his second try, then 198 feet twice, and finally finished with the new world record of 201 feet. He is a professional. Ironically, that record would only last 3 days. Paul Beadle of Ishpeming set a record of 208 feet at the annual tournament in Ishpeming. It became apparent that ski jumping was gaining in popularity throughout the Gogebic Range, with tournaments being held in Ironwood, Ramsey, and Hurley. Undoubtedly, leaders of the ski jumping community had to be thinking about an organization that was more broadly represented by area communities. How would this organization be structured? What would be its name? These were important issues relevant to such an organization. Equally important was the issue of a bigger hill that could attract the top skiers in the Midwest. The experience of Mount Zion, while not the most successful, proved to be helpful for the ski jumping community in realizing that the slope at Mount Zion would not be suitable for a slide. The shape of the hill would require massive, expensive work to bring the hill up to the standards of the day, and even if a slide were to be constructed at Mount Zion, the maximum distance would only be about 200 feet, which was already being exceeded in other communities. The answer to these and other pertinent questions came at a meeting of ski jumping enthusiasts in the council chambers, which were filled to capacity in the Ironwood Memorial Building on Friday, April 5th, 1935. Again, the Ironwood Daily Globe gave their report. Prospects are good for a proposed new ski club. A new site for a ski slide located, and a large audience of riders and fans hear discussion of the plan. The Globe went on. Summer is just around a couple of corners and the snowdrifts are gradually disappearing, but there is no lack of interest in ski riding in Ironwood and vicinity. On the contrary, interest is so great that prospects for organization of a strong club to boost this thrilling winter sport are unusually bright. This was revealed last night to persons who were interested in hearing the plans for a proposed organization which its sponsors hope will bring ski riding back to the place it occupied here in other years. Joe Marine had charge of the meeting. He said the purpose of organizing the ski club now was to assure Ironwood of being the site for tournaments sanctioned by the United States Central Ski Association and make it possible for Olympic and other nationally known riders to appear here next winter. Earl Minkin expressed himself as being heartily in favor of the proposed organization. He described the hill which was being selected, and his praise of it impressed the audience. Sam Davey corroborated Mr. Minkin's statements and declared the hill as one of the prettiest natural slides he has ever seen. Walter Brotland, one of the best known of the local riders, said he was impressed by the site and expressed a belief that it could be put in condition at a small expense. Brotland also favored joining the Central Ski Association. Walter Wick, former president of the Norrie Athletic Club, offered his support and his ski promoting experience to the new organizations. Many other riders and fans expressed their confidence and wholehearted support of any movement which would bring large tournaments and nationally known riders to Ironwood next winter. Such riders as Bert Wilczek, Jack Koivisto, Ted Johnson, Hewitt, and Anderson brothers were also present. In discussing the proposed new site for a slide prior to the meeting, one of the riders estimated that leaps of 200 feet could easily be made to start with, and that longer jumps would be made later. The hill would have a landing that was more suitable than that at Mount Zion, which is considered too steep by many riders. and it would permit longer jumps than were ever made at the old Curry Hill slide. A large artificial scaffold would not be needed, it was pointed out, since this hill has a northward slope and is largely wooded. Snow remains there for a long time, so that the usual conditions it would be possible to hold tournaments there in April, a month later than they could be held elsewhere. The proposed site, later to be named Wolverine Hill, was a second choice. Earl Minkin, Sam Davey, Joe Marine, and the others examined Chippewa Hill, which is the present-day Copper Peak, and preferred it because these skiers wanted to have a hill which they recognized would allow distances greater than any hill in the Midwest. They also recognized that it would take huge resources and years to develop the site. On Friday, April 12, 1935, the ski club was officially organized. Officers and board members with broad support from across the Gogebic Range were elected. Joe Marine of Ironwood has been elected president of the Gogebic Range Ski Club, GRSC, which is being organized for the purpose of making possible the holding of sanctioned ski tournaments in Ironwood. Other officers elected were Tom Salo of Ironwood Township, Vice President, Earl Minkin of Ironwood, Secretary, Joe Carter of Hurley, Treasurer, Directors Rudolph Lawrenson of Puritan, John Klebowski of Ramsey, Walter Wick and Sam Davey of Ironwood, and Henry Ryla of Ironwood Township. The Gogebic Range Ski Club last night adopted its constitution and bylaws at a meeting held at the Memorial Building here. In a bold move to garner support from county officials for a comprehensive recreation facility at the new ski hill site, the GRSC, Gogebic Range Ski Club, proposed this initiative. The Gogebic Range Ski Club has taken the initiative to interest county authorities in the establishment of a $100,000 winter sports center in conjunction with the club's new ski slide northeast of the city. The club hopes the plan can be realized through the WPA program. The proposal, although good, went nowhere. So 1935 was the beginning of the dream of Copper Peak. The disappointment of Mount Zion combined with increased interest in ski jumping sports throughout the Gogebic Range prompted ski jumping enthusiasts to look for a new site for a jumping complex. Records were being broken throughout the Midwest, with leaps in excess of 200 feet being regularly attained. Neighboring communities of Ishpeming and Iron Mountain were planning to enlarge their slides to build new and bigger ones. The challenge was on. No doubt many sites were explored for the construction of a new ski jumping facility. It is impossible to tell what might have suggested Chippewa Hill, present site of Copper Peak, located some 10 miles north and east of Ironwood, as a possible location to build a ski jumping complex. The idea for this location emerged as early as 1935, as pointed out in the prospectus prepared for the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation by Frank Saget and Associates in 1967. The Gogebic Ski Club desired Copper Peak from its inception, but was forced to settle for a lesser site on the range. The lesser site would become Wolverine Hill, so named in 1938. All energies by the Gogebic Range Ski Club were thereafter directed to building the Wolverine Hill site, and the concept of Copper Peak was put on the back burner for a number of years. Well, it looks like we've run out of time for this episode. This is your narrator, Dan McManman, saying thank you so much for joining us with the retelling of this great book titled Soaring with the Eagles, The Copper Peak Story by Charlie Supersinski. And would you keep Copper Peak in your mind when planning your vacation for next year? It's a fun and adventurous visit for the whole family. And don't forget, Charlie's book is available at the Depot in downtown Ironwood, and also at the Downtown Art Place in Ironwood. These episodes of The Eagle's Nest are broadcast on Copper Peak Radio 102.1 FM at 6:08 a.m. and p.m. and 11:08 a.m. and p.m. Central Time. We are on YouTube all the time, including previous episodes, so just go to YouTube and use the search terms Copper Peak Eagle's Nest and scroll to the eagle sitting on the nest on top of the Copper Peak slide. That's your YouTube channel for Copper Peak, and the episodes are numbered. So thanks again for listening, and see you next time.